Man's general well-being and day-to-day living is dependent on the three basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing. Most importantly, food is a fuel that gives the human body the energy to carry out daily tasks effectively. Now, one issue of great concern in Nigeria, despite being one of the world's largest food producers, is food waste. Statistics indicate that Nigeria loses 30 to 40% of food produced due to inefficiencies in the supply chain, inadequate storage facilities, and consumer behavior. In the light of this, we shall be taking a look at food waste, its economic and environmental impact. I am Frama Panyi. Thank you for joining us on Frontiers. Our guest is Dr. Michael Theungwa David, an environmental advocate and Africa Regional Coordinator, Citizens Climate International. It's a pleasure having you join us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right. This is Frontiers, and we're taking a look at food waste, its economic and environmental impact. The program continues in a moment. Once more, you're welcome on Frontiers.
Thank you.
Now, let's get straight into the business of today. You're an expert in this field. What are the main causes of food waste in Nigeria?
So, to know the main causes of food waste in Nigeria, it's important to understand exactly what food waste actually is. So, food waste is different from food loss. So, we have food waste and we have
food loss.
So, let's start from food loss, then we'll get food waste.
Okay.
Now, food loss is all the food that is lost at the point of production, harvest, and storage. All the food that we lose at that period, we refer to as food loss. Now, when we come to food waste, it has to do with all the food that we prepare and we end up not eating.
Okay.
And that is food waste. All is waste, whether loss or food waste itself is all waste. So in Nigeria, there are so many factors that are responsible for food waste. First is post-harvest losses. So about 40% of all the food we produce go to waste. But when you go into the hinterland and see where tomatoes is harvested, you will see that there's a lot of waste. And it's not just tomatoes. It is all the crops. Irish potatoes, it's yam. At the harvest stage, a lot goes to waste. And what is the reason? Lack of storage facilities. Now, a lot of the perishable food we produce in Nigeria go to waste. I think that the percentage is even more than 40. Yes. And it's simply because we are not able to store. You go around the market, the major market, Use market and other markets, and just go behind the market and see the tons of waste that is generated. It simply tells you that the perishable food items, tomatoes, vegetables, our farmers are not able to store because they require optimal temperature that they are required to be stored. They don't have those facilities. Secondly, transportation infrastructure. So lots of the crops produced in the northern part of the country are expected to be transported to the south. Take, for example, Lagos, the Mile 12 market. You arrive there and you see trailer loads of farm produce coming in. And many of it go to waste even before they get to the market because our roads are bad. Some of these things the journey that should take maybe 2-3 hours, those trucks will take, a day, 2 days, and sometimes they break down on the road and everything go to waste.
Yeah.
So That's that. But let's come back to the one that we are very familiar with. And that is the food we produce, we cook, and we do not eat. In our homes, a typical example would be attend a wedding ceremony and see what happens there. You will see that people would, like to pack everything combined, and then you have your plate very full, and they just have a taste of it, and the rest go to waste. And that is money wasted. That is energy wasted. That is time wasted. That is everything wasted. So a lot contributes. But I would say that ignorance is the major factor in this case.
Wow, interesting. Now, you said the percent is even more than 40, and that's a lot, So, how does this food waste impact, what is the impact on Nigeria's economy and the environment, and the society as a whole, looking at the percentage involved?
So, as you know, at the moment, there is fewer food inflation in the country. The prices of food are skyrocketing. And what is the government doing? Importing. We are going back to importation. That is a huge cost on our economy. Last year, we are looking at the range of close to $1 billion that was used to import food. Over the past 6 years, it's about 7.3 billion. Trillion rather, not billion. That's a lot. The foreign exchange we are looking for, we are using it to import food that should be protected. So if we actually produce food and we are able to prevent the losses from post-harvest losses, proper storage, then we will have food enough to go around. So you can clearly see the impact on our economy. On the individual level, you know what it is. The hunger protest and all the other issues that are surrounding it. I mean, when you talk of that, you are also linking it to health as well. You don't eat well, you fall sick, right? And several other direct and indirect impact of lack of food. But we have the capacity to produce. Just that when we produce, lots of it go to waste. And so it's a big impact on our economy, on the pockets of citizens. Environment, that is where the big issue really is. So when you produce food, a lot goes to it. First, I mentioned energy.
Yeah.
Water, pesticides, herbicides, all the agrochemicals go with the production of food. And now we know the environmental impact of all of this. But when this food is produced and goes to waste, it ends up where? In the landfills. And what happens? It produces methane gas. Methane is one of the greenhouse gases. It's even more potent than carbon that we know. And the simple reason, one molecule of methane retains more heat than the molecule of carbon. So when you pass around the waste dump and you hear that very strong smell, that is methane gas going up into the atmosphere. And what is causing it? It is food waste. So it is a major contributor to climate change. And now, because a lot of farmers are not able to store food all year round because of this issue of storage and all, they have to produce more. And when you do that, you are expanding. And when you expand, that is deforestation. That is land degradation. That is more fertilizer being used. That is more chemicals being used. all of this impact the environment. We are looking at biodiversity loss, right? We are looking at pollution in our rivers, and all of those other issues. So food waste is a very big issue to the environment. But the good thing is, it is an issue that we can actually contend with.
Leading me to my next question now. How can food waste be minimized? You just said it can be contained. How can it be minimized throughout the supply chain as you've just explained?
So, firstly, we need to empower our farmers, especially the smallholder farmer. I am laying emphasis on the smallholder farmers because they actually feed the nation. The commercial farmers are always actually producing for export. We need the foreign exchange, but of what sense does it make that you export food, import food? So we need to empower our smallholder farmers to have the capacity to produce food and to store. And when we say food, we're not just looking at crops alone. We are looking at fish. Just look at the fishermen. They go out on the sea. They are able to make huge catches. When they get back, they are not able to store. I mean, many of them are forced to sell at giveaway price because lots of this will go to waste within a short period. But if there are storage facilities within those environments, it can be curbed. So that is one of the first things we need to do. Every community should have a storage system, both cold storage, especially for perishable food items. You go to Jos, you see lots of vegetables and fruits by the roadside, right? So when you have a community storage systems, these farmers, if no one buys, they shouldn't trash. They should be able to store, and then they will sell the next day or as the case may be. So the storage system is very important. But we also need to improve on our infrastructure. For a long time we kept hearing, access to farmland, access roads to the farms and all. But the situation has remained. Now, if the roads are very bad, when the farmers harvest, they are not able to evacuate a lot of this, and then many go to waste, right? Now, some infrastructure, simple things like solar dryers, are able to help farmers to dry their produce, especially the grains, such that when they store them, molds and other fungi and bacteria infection does not get into them. But as the case is, farmers are not able to dry. And with climate change is worsening. I remember what happened last year, practically. Farmers were harvesting their grains. Some harvested and even stored in the farm, like open storage. Suddenly, we had rains in November. If you can recall, there was this heavy downpour, around November, towards the end of November, and almost most farmers lost a great deal because grains that were already dried became, wet, and then many of them, ended up wasting. So if there are proper storage systems within communities, we're not saying individual, but just make it like a community storage facility where farmers are able to go and store, whatever they produce, Another quick way of making a quick win is processing. I know what happens when lots of fruits, when it's mango season, when it's orange season, you go and you see a basket of mango just by the roadside, and everything, goes to waste when people don't buy. But if there is processing, then it means that we are adding value, right? And all of this will not go to waste. So, and that will take me to a very good question that I always ask. Do you know where your food comes from? Do you know how it was produced? Do you know who produced it? So but that is value addition to help reduce food waste and help reduce hunger.
Doctor, just hold on. We'll pause here. Take a short break. We will come back. We will pause here for a break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the break. Now, doctor, how can food waste be converted into valuable resources like compost, energy, or fuel?
Oh, yes. Now, we hear waste is wealth. And indeed, it is wealth. The country, Nigeria, we are struggling with land degradation, soil infertility, which is impacting food production.
Okay.
We are importing, and farmers are struggling to get fertilizers.
Sure.
The chemical fertilizers, which are actually harmful to our soil. But we have tons of waste, organic waste, that we can actually convert to compost and organic fertilizers. So that is one of the first things we need to do. That when food is wasted, when you have post-harvest losses, you should not actually look at it as complete loss. You can actually convert this to compost. And our farmers and extension agents need to teach the local farmers how to do this. It's a very simple practice. Back in secondary school, while growing up, we were taught how to make compost. All you need is just keep dumping all the waste in there, the organic waste actually. And then when it's filled up, you cover it, and allow for like 90 days. When it decomposes, you open it up and dry it before applying it to your land, to your soil. And that improves soil fertility. So imagine the tons. In fact, the United Nations report actually said we generate like 1.3 billion tons of food waste.
Wow.
Annually. So imagine that quantity converted to organic fertilizer. It will help improve our soils. It will help reduce the heavy use of chemicals on our land. That's the first one. The second one, when you pass around the waste dump and you hear that, you perceive that smell, that very disturbing smell, it is actually methane gas. That gas can also be used as cooking gas. It can actually be harvested and used. This is not rocket science, it's done. In your home, you can experiment it. Just put all together, cover, prevent air from coming in, and the gas stores up. Although it requires some training so that you don't cause, issues for yourself. But that gas is actually highly, highly inflammable and can be used for cooking. So while we are complaining of, oh, gas is so expensive, and we are chopping down all the trees and using it as firewood, we can actually convert those wastes. For people who have poultry farms, who have piggery farms and all, they do this. It's quite easy. You just have what we call biodigester. And then you use it to produce your gas.
Now, the problem of food waste is a very serious one. From the conversation we've had and from all you've said, Doctor, can you tell us briefly now, how can awareness be raised towards behavioral change?
I think this is the first thing to do, and part of what we are doing on this program as well. And people need to know that when you waste food, you are wasting money. You are not just wasting money, you are wasting resources. What are these resources? you are wasting water that was used in producing this food. You are wasting the fertilizer that was used in producing this food. You are wasting all the agrochemicals. You are wasting the soil that was used in producing this food. And you are wasting your own time and the time of the farmers as well. So morally, it should be wrong to waste food. And it should start from the home by teaching our children not to waste food. You know, these days, our kids, you have to beg them to eat. And sometimes they just touch a little and they tell you they are okay with it. Those kind of attitudes should not be encouraged. So we should start from home. We should not waste food. And we should have a need and a use for any food that is wasted in the home. So now we are complaining, we are encouraging people to grow food around their homes. So have a little compost. All those food that is wasted, have a little compost, have a garden around your home, and use it, to improve your soil, for soil health, to grow more food, even within the environment. In the schools, the same thing should be done. In the churches, the same thing. But nationally, we need that orientation, that at this time that we are struggling with food insecurity, with food inflation, we need to not waste food. And for those who sell, they must understand that every crop has a minimum temperature that is required for it to be stored. And sometimes you buy medicine, say it's written, store in a cool, dry place. Right. Yam, cassava, and all that. But when you allow the elements of nature to impact on it, it goes to waste easily. You have rice that is dry and you store in a place that is wet, you should know that mold will grow on it and it will go bad. So that awareness is very important, and it must go. It should be a sin of some sort that you should waste food, especially when you consider that there are millions of people going to bed hungry. And then you go prepare food and you don't eat it. And it's worse at occasions and during festivities.
Right.
Christmas, at Easter, at Salah,
yeah,
weddings, people will cook tons of food, and
thank you so much, Dr. Michael, for sharing your thought with us. Basically, food wastage is not allowed. It is a no-no. So it is an absolute pleasure having you join us again on the program Frontiers, sharing your thoughts with us. We're very grateful.
Thank you, and I always say, thou shalt not pollute the earth.
We have been taking a look at food waste and its economic and environmental impact. And our guest was Dr. Michael Teunga David, an environment advocate and Africa Regional Coordinator, Citizens Climate International. Thanks for joining us. I am Frama Panyi.